individuals to decide what I'll pay, what we'll negotiate for my labor services. Every free trade is a human right. It's like who you decide to marry. It's you and someone else. It's a two-way exchange between two people, not the rest of the world. So having majorities vote for economic policies, unless it's to control pollution, it's not freedom. The government likes to tell us what to eat and drink. No fast food, no sugar, it's bad for you. We have to live a long time. It's bad for you. But is the goal in life to live 113 years and be a little hamster in a cage, running on a wheel, eating rice pellets and being miserable? Or is it to have fun too? And who weighs the benefits and the costs? I do. So if I want to have a steak every weekend in the summer, I'm getting nutritional value, but with a heightened, it's so yummy, but with a heightened risk, yes, I'm a vegetarian, but with a heightened risk, just work with me, people, of losing a few years off the end of my life, but boy, I had fun. So not only the three functions of government, stealing, taking away your liberties, and destroying the currency. I just did the second one, taking away your liberties. I'm big on information, telling people the risks, but then they make the choices. No one decides how much sugar I eat. I decide. Sorry I keep blowing into this. I know it's obnoxious. We're approaching April 15th. It's going to get worse, students who've had me, as we approach, it's April 17th this year. Sometimes people say, oh, a free market where you have free enterprise, people are self-determining, they can control their own labor time, that's passing the 13th Amendment, abolishing slavery. In a free enterprise system where individuals get up in the morning and decide where they work, no one tells them, there's no state-run factories that say, oh, the pig farmer just retired, but you want to go into music. Oh, you may not be an entrepreneur and try that. We need another pig farmer. That's a state-run economy. When people get up in the morning and they decide what to do with their lives, and they make it big, and many people try and fail, big risks. That kind of system where you work hard, keep what you earn, it's called a selfish, Darwinian, self-interest society. Listen to the language of the interventionist. So clever and sly. I work for myself and my family, not you. So I'm selfish if I don't surrender my work products to you. Selfish means free. And now I'm big on charity. But as you can see, I corrected what socialists like to define charity as. We should be forced to help others. I crossed out be forced to, and I just left it that way. We should help others, definitely. But each individual that produces their own work products, and we pass the 13th Amendment, controls those charitable givings exclusively. No one votes to take my money for someone else. I make those decisions, only. And of course, there's a lot of waste in government charity. There's a lot of corruption, there's bailouts at banks. Fish farmers got $50 million in stimulus money to cover the cost of their fish feed, and it just enriched them from 2008's cost, so it wasn't even creating jobs. So government charity is not exactly efficient either, but it's immoral to take my money to give to someone else. I decide that. Healthcare is not a right, it's an allocation decision. Are there any people here who served in the armed services? Healthcare is not a right. You pay for your own healthcare. There are worse things than being sick or dying or living in a trailer park because you had to liquidate your house to afford I have a lot of insurance for that reason. I don't want to rely on the government. But there's worse things than being poor or having to sell your house and live in a trailer park to pay for your husband's brain surgery. There are worse things than being poor, like violating other people's economic liberties to keep their own work products. As people who have served in the Army know so well, they will die to preserve your rights and protect you from predation, theft, and plunder. They're dying for that. And they're not out there protesting and screaming with protest whistles, and they're in the field fighting. I didn't get my 5-minute break, and like, where's my lunch break? So I'm giving this talk for them. That's why I'm here today. Amazing. Everybody wants something from somebody else. Unbelievable. But we voted for it. As Walter Williams, who's dreamy, Walter E. Williams says, just because it doesn't say thou shalt not steal unless approved by a majority of Congress. So, education is not a right. It's a small business investment. I need my cash for lifelong learning to constantly improve my skills. How much money are we going to give for education? It all? That's what I'm asking. When you develop your human capital skills, your education, this is how you fund it in a peaceful civil society. You save your money. You work 2 jobs. Or you did what I did. I lived in an apartment with 3 other people I hated to save on rent. I had no TV, no car, no computer.
You could join the armed forces and get it.
Well, dummy, I didn't do it, but thank you. Yeah. And I saved money. I also took student loans. Other people need their money for their own lifelong learning. You can borrow it peacefully in the capital market. Go to the bank and say, I'm going to major in feminist poetry of the 1600s. The banker's going to say, oh, did I say that? I meant chemical engineering. Okay. Deal. You take the loan, you pay for your education, then you start your job at the vet office if you're a veterinarian. The customers pay you, and you pay back the loan. The end users fund the costs of the investment. When I, as a taxpayer, have to pay for the theater arts major, and I don't like the theater, and you do, and I'm paying for, makes me your, when I have to subsidize or pay for your theater arts degree, and I don't go to the theater, I'm a taxpayer, but someone else does, I'd rather have animal vets, my birds go to the vet, but I'm paying for your consumer goods. That makes me your slave. Thank you. Keep it nice and clean. End users cover all the costs. That's called an efficient investment in human capital. We throw so much money at majors, and then the students say, why am I unemployed at 40 in my dad's basement? Oh, it's the economy. The economy's bad. No, no. It was the major you picked. If you picked the major we wanted, the economy would be good, right? Okay, and I guess I should stop there. I could go on and on. But what would a society without heavy government programs and intervention look like? Would everyone die? Would we have poor wandering the streets? Oh, and the back of the white handout, I have a wonderful essay by Walter Williams. I love you. My initial assumption is we each own ourselves. I am my private property and you're yours. I know the idea of private enterprise, private. My colleagues spit that out like it's a dirty word. Though I hate privatization, private enterprise. Private means individual enterprises, free enterprises. I decide what business I want to go into and take that risk. No one tells me. I decide. It's called freedom. And they're so disparaging of the idea of free enterprise. Ugh, they spit it out. Ugh. And free enterprise is good for consumers because it keeps the corrupt bastards competing against each other. No matter how messy and deep and chaotic it is, it produces better goods and better technologies. It's a good thing. It's the worst way to allocate resources and make production decisions, except for all the others. Free enterprise is the worst way to make production decisions. Competition, except for all the others. Socialism, state-run factories. I think that's what Churchill said about democracy. Yeah. So yeah, it's unfair, it's unequal, some have profits, some have losses. The profits to me are signals of where to go next. We need rap music, not accordion music, to signal. Okay, and so in my little yellow handout, I have some ideas for your majors. The more sciences you do, the better. On page 7 of the yellow handout, new technologies help farmers cut their production costs. So some software was designed so the farmers can map their fields. And they know exactly where to put fertilizer, which is made of petroleum, it's very expensive. So it cut their costs down, I think 30%. The software was cheap. So do we need the dog in cinema, or do we need software designers to help us use less oil? Lowers the cost, frees up oil for other things, all good. I'm really big on the sciences. My job as an economist is to cheerlead for the sciences for 15 weeks, and I know my job. Filling in the cracks, they mix bacteria into cement, so when they build public bridges and there's earthquakes, these biologists worked with architects and civil engineers, and now when there's earthquakes, the bacteria grows and fills in the cracks. So does that free up resources and money for other things for the state? Or we could just have a tax cut. What about that? Wouldn't that be nice? Have more leisure time. So I do have a couple more examples in here, but toward the back I have some little charts and tables, but I better stop there. Thank you.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, thanks for showing up. My name is Paul Hicks, I teach philosophy here at Pierce, and yes, I am a Marxist. I'm unabashedly a Marxist. What does that mean really to be a Marxist? That means I follow the philosophy and the sociology of Karl Marx. That Karl Marx actually had some really good points. Want to know what those really good points are? I gave you a nice quote right at the beginning of this handout. If you haven't gotten one, I'm sorry, I didn't expect this much standing room only, but maybe somebody can share it for you. Karl Marx pointed out that capitalism and private property is in fact guilty of the fallacy of circular reasoning. We have presupposed that private property is the way to go, that the concept of exchange value, competition, the division of labor, that all of this is the right thing. But why? Why is it? Why can't we question that? Right? That's what I want to do. This book right here that she actually brought in, John Rawls, A Theory of Justice, one of the great philosophers of the last century. He gives us very nice thought experiment for us, and he asks us, what kind of society do we want? What is it to be a just society? And he gives us what's been known as the veil of ignorance. You guys familiar with it? Yeah. Any philosophy 2 students out there? There you go. All right, so essentially here's what it is. He asked us to think of ourselves in what he calls the original position. And that is to say that, imagine that if I'm God and I come down to you and I tell you, after tomorrow, I'm going to snap my fingers and we're going to create a brand new society. Now, all of us being rational people, we are going to have to agree prior to my doing this about what that society is going to look like. Well, what would that society look like? What type of principles of justice would we in fact have if we were to go ahead and do that? Well, Rawls argues that there's actually a few things that we would all agree on as rational people. Number one, by the way, you don't know once I snap my fingers what race you're going to be, what gender you're going to be, what sex you're going to be. You don't know what class you're going to be. You have no idea what types of things you're going to like, what you desire versus what you don't. So for example, if you happen to like surfing, right, on this side of the veil, on the other side of the veil, you may not like surfing at all. So not knowing where you're going to end up and where you're going to land, what type of society would you like to create? Well, there's a few things that he thinks that we're going to agree on. And one of them is that no matter what, equality isn't necessarily what's important. This is where I think the libertarians and I are going to agree. It's not that perfect equality is important, but what we would like to have is a society which always looks towards those who are worse off. Why? Because if you're on this side of the veil, you want a society that's going to try to make those who are worse off better off no matter what, right? Because you don't know where you're going to land, right? I think most of us are going to agree to something like that. And so really, what type of society would we like to have? Well, I believe that the type of society that we're going to want to have is going to be one where human achievement is maximized, pleasure is maximized, pain is minimized. I think we probably agree on something like that. I think the type of society we want to have is where liberty is maximized. And so far, I think we agree on that. However, what is liberty? That we don't